This is an article that was posted in Screen Rant. It's from Brad Curran. And Brad Curran, he generally writes for Screen Rant, but he's also a sympathizer, actually, of the Restore the Snyderverse movement and the Snyder Cut movement. I think he sees virtue in it. So he's actually, if you want to say there are shills that are speaking for WB that give mistruth and stuff, he's like a guy that sides with us. Now, the truth is, though, he's not saying anything that's a lie. And that's the difference. He's not trying to mislead. Warner Brothers is wasting DCEU hype by not capitalizing on the Snyder Cut. The best thing that Warner Brothers has is Zack Snyder's Snyderverse. Really, that's the best thing they have. And let me just explain to you why Justice League 2 is basically going to be something that's better than any MCU movie out there. And the reason that is so is because we are seeing the journey of a particular character, Superman. And we have seen Superman die. We know that Superman is good, but he does have weaknesses. One of his weaknesses is his attachment and his love for his mother and for Lois Lane. And we have been, basically from the Snyder Cut, it shows us Superman going evil because he loses Lois Lane and he holds Batman responsible for that. Sort of like Injustice. And he gets under the influence of the anti-life equation as a result of that. Now, the thing about this is that we have not seen that in the MCU. We have not seen a character that's virtuous turn, under influence, of course, evil. We have not seen that. And what's cool about this is, a lot of people say that how Superman, he's too dark in Man of Steel, and he's too depressed and morose. Well, first of all, shout out to James Gunn. Brightburn showed us a Superman who was dark. And he was just a child, and he was dark, and it was crazy, right? Now, Zack Snyder's going to show us the side of the character when broken. That's dark. And I can't wait to see that. That's going to be something epic. And so, that's something that the DCEU will have over Marvel. And I'm shocked that, again, these set of executives are holding this ransom. This is something AT&T, HBO Max should get on from day one. Additionally, think about this. In this universe, there's a Black Adam. And Black Adam sometimes works for good, sometimes works for evil. But imagine that Superman facing off against Black Adam. And Black Adam existing in that universe. Maybe roles will switch. Black Adam might be on the good side. Superman may be on the bad side. Either way, imagine that. We see villains siding with Batman, Deathstroke, the Joker, as a convenience to face Superman, a foe. We see that Superman killed Green Lanterns. All I'm saying is, this is the kind of thing that you gotta love. And there's no comic book universe right now, and no comic book movie doing this sort of stuff. None. So Zack Snyder is unprecedented when he's doing his thing and showing us the blueprint. He showed us the blueprint of what it is. It's not going to be exactly like that, and we don't know how the details will go, but it's just amazing to hear. And so I just wanted to start with that. Let's get back to the script. So yes, WB is throwing the best possible thing out there ever when it comes to comic book movies on the back burner. Talk about ass backwards. This is why all those executives need to be fired instantaneously. We shouldn't be thinking about this. This is not even a. AT&T should be handing out severance checks to those guys and tell them move on. I think we will get some our people to manage Warner Media. Zack Snyder's Justice League has been very well received since its release. But despite this, Warner Brothers is failing to build on that excitement. He's so right. Warner Brothers is failing to capitalize on the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League, despite the positive reception the movie has seen and growing calls for Snyder's planned story to be realized. The Snyder Cut has become a modern movie legend in unprecedented circumstances of its release, arriving after a sustained push by fans for Snyder's original cut of Justice League to be released after the truncated and extensively reshot theatrical version died in theaters in 2017. That's the cul-de-sac. Zack Snyder's Justice League is not the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is the one that was in theaters. Nobody wants to go back to that movie. Nobody. Especially after seeing the Snyder Cut. Nobody wants to see that movie. Why are you saying that the continuity must continue with this movie? A movie that failed in the cinemas. What kind of cockamamie rubbish is that? Let's keep it moving. Now that Snyder's movie has finally seen the light of day, interest has also surged in where he planned to take things after Justice League in the remainder of the 5-story arc he originally planned. A collection of whiteboards recently displayed at AT&T's exhibit. AT&T's exhibit. What did I say? AT&T's exhibit. Remember that. I provided an outline of Snyder's plans for Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. Though certain details have changed since they were originally written, and Snyder has stressed viewing them as an overall blueprint over the specific elements therein, both the whiteboards and the ending of the Snyder Cut itself have inspired considerable growing interest in Snyder's plans for the franchise to be revived. Unfortunately, Warner Brothers has offered consistent signals that they do not intend to act on this. They clearly said it's not happening, right? The executives that are there. And quite frankly, they're going to stay hell-bent on that until they are removed or forced under pressure to remove themselves from the situation. Of course, that hasn't stopped fans who beat the drum from the Snyder Cut from continuing to call for Snyder's arc to be fulfilled with the new hashtag, Restore the Snyderverse. What's more, they're not alone in their efforts, with a visibly growing mainstream interest in the Snyderverse to continue. But Warner Bros. Says there'll be no more movies to continue the story. This isn't simply bound to create as much, if not more, of a headache for the studio than the Snyder Cut itself was. But Warner Bros., not building upon the excitement the movie has generated, is beginning to set back the DCEU after the resurrection the Snyder Cut has afforded it. This is so true. I think people would have a different attitude to The Flash were it that we knew the Snyderverse was moving forward and so many people would support the Flash movie. I remember a spillover where a lot of people supported the Aquaman movie because Jason Momoa closely aligned himself with releasing the Snyder Cut and immediately spoke about supporting the Snyder Cut. James Gunn is going to also get a lot of pickup because, again, a lot of Snyderverse fans are going to support James Gunn's Suicide Squad because James Gunn has supported the Snyderverse. And the only thing James Gunn hasn't come out and done, and nobody from WB to be honest, and not even Jason Momoa these days, is hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Nobody's really come out and done that. Neither Ben Affleck or Gal Gadot. Only people who have been doing it is Ray Fisher and Ray Porter. Not even Zack Snyder has done that, by the way. Okay, so, and that's because there's a gag order within Warner Brothers preventing people from discussing anything that has to do with the Snyderverse like that. What's more, as I said before, they're not alone in their efforts, with a visibly growing mainstream interest in the Snyderverse to continue, but Warner Brothers says there will be no more movies to continue the story. This is not simply bound to create as much, if not more of a headache for the studio than the Snyder Cut itself was. But Warner Brothers, not building upon the excitement the movie has generated, is beginning to set back the DCU after the resurrection that the Snyder Cut has afforded it. When Man of Steel and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice were first released, both became love-it or hate-it affairs among audiences. For every passionate fan the two found, there was always an unimpressed detractor. However, that not only changed when Zack Snyder's Justice League finally arrived, but the widely positive reviews it received and a simple social media search shows that the movie also won over many who had not held Snyder's DC films in high regard. Quite a few even going as far as to reappraise Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. Had the Snyder Cut been subject to as divisive a reception as its two predecessors, that would have all but ensured the movie was destined to be, as reportedly been described internally at Warner Brothers, a storytelling cul-de-sac. Instead, the exact opposite happened, with the Snyder Cut completely usurping its theatrical counterpart in the public consciousness. The ending also set up the potential for the movie story to continue in multiple ways. And the numerous teases the Snyder Cut ended on haven't been lost on anyone who has seen it. Since the Snyder Cut hit HBO Max domestically and other streaming services around the world, the hashtag Restore the Snyderverse has been impossible to miss on social media, even clearing 1.5 million tweets in a single day shortly after the Snyder Cut was released. Let me just say something else. There's something very historic going on with the Snyderverse right now. The Snyder Cut in China. In China right now, the Snyder Cut has hit something like 160 million views on a particular streaming service. Collectively, on various streaming platforms, it has crossed way past 200 and something million views. And that in and of itself is humongous, because it's very close to passing Endgame's 230 million views on a certain platform. So we're looking to see what happens with that, if it will set a whole new record on a particular platform in China. And that just will completely cement the fact that Zack Snyder's Justice League needs to go into theaters, like I've been saying all along. It needs to go into theaters, and not only does it need to go into theaters, but it's also obviously it is $1 billion making movie. Okay? It's probably shattering the $1 billion, which means this movie, which is 4 hours long, it probably would have been 3 hours and 34 minutes. Yeah, it would have been 3 hours and 34 minutes. An extra 30 minutes was added to it. This movie, 4-hour long movie, is loved by China. And I know the Chinese will go in their numbers into theaters just to see this movie. All right. So the hashtag Restore the Snyderverse has been impossible to miss on social media, even clearing 1.5 million tweets in a single day shortly after the Snyder Cut was released. What makes the hashtag itself particularly worthy of consideration is that it's now expanded well beyond just devout Snyder fans pushing it. with many more social media influencers and other movie fans tweeting it after seeing the movie. Celebrities have also shown support for the Snyderverse to continue, including country music star Brad Paisley, while Leslie Jones' comedic commentary over the Snyder Cut made the rounds and then some. And also, let me add, news personalities like Jake Tapper and sport personalities, we've seen every different spectrum of person comment on the Snyder Cut. Aside from restoring the Snyderverse in the basic sense of finishing the 5 movie arc he originally planned, which would essentially entail greenlighting Justice League 2 and Justice League 3, the other ancillary Snyderverse projects also have seen a renewed surge of support. Release the Ayer Cut, in reference to David Ayer's original cut of Suicide Squad, has also gained momentum since the Snyder Cut's debut, while similar interest has also been revived for Ben Affleck's Discard Batman solo movie and the Deathstroke origin film to be realized. The latter two have been born out of the combination of Snyder Cut's ending, which sees Lex Luthor hire Slade Wilson to take out Batman, as the originally intended setup for Affleck's film, along with major teasers Joe Manganiello has dropped on the direction both projects were meant to take. While a full picture of the movie's HBO Max performance is still not available yet, Restore the Snyderverse or other related hashtags have trended regularly since its release. Obviously, stars would have to align for a full restoration of the Snyderverse to come to pass, including whether Ben Affleck, following his notoriously protracted DCEU departure, would have any interest in returning beyond his upcoming appearance in The Flash. In any case, the interest for more Snyderverse movies to happen is clearly no longer held strictly by die-hard Snyder fans. The contrast in reception of the 2 versions of Justice League is night and day. Preceded by months of bad buzz about extensive reshoots and Ben Affleck's looming departure from the DCEU, Justice League bombed in 2017 theatrical release, with the poor digital removal of Henry Cavill's mustache becoming a punchline and calls for the Snyder Cut swiftly emerging. As previously stated, the Snyder Cut has seen an infinitely more positive reception among enthusiasm along with enthusiasm for more in the Snyderverse. But another benefit it brought is how much it's undone the damage wrought by the theatrical cut. Justice League's failure left the DCEU in ruins, with Ben Affleck eventually making his departure official, numerous projects falling into developmental hell or slowly fading away, and the overall plan for the franchise becoming vague at best. The Snyder Cut didn't just provide the DCU with the exact surge of energy it was lacking after the theatrical cut's release, but it also rekindled the public's interest in numerous characters and the DCEU as a larger story instead of just a collection of unconnected movies. Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke, while only appearing in a cameo that slightly expanded upon in the movie's nightmare ending, has been reinvigorated in a big way, with Manganiello's comments on Affleck's Batman script and the Deathstroke original movie inspiring significant interest in both. Ray Fisher's shortchanged Cyborg was restored to being the heart of the movie, as Snyder had long positioned him as, with many fans eager to see where Cyborg's story was headed in Snyder's arc. Oh man, I can't breathe. And equally displeased with Fisher's removal from The Flash over his dispute with Warner Brothers on the investigation into the Justice League reshoots. Henry Cavill's Superman has also gotten a new wave of adoration after the Snyder Cut, with both the direction he was taking in Snyder's arc and the prospect of him and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Black Adam one day facing off, exciting many fans. Additionally, Jared Leto's Joker returned in the Nightmare sequence and was also generating excitement as the prospect of Batman reluctantly joining forces with him to undo the Nightmare timeline in Justice League 2, as well as it pushing a possible tease at a Batman Joker movie where we have the death of Robin in it. Along with the interest in other characters' futures, like Harry Lennox's Martian Manhunter and Wayne T. Carr's Green Lantern, none of that could happen without the Snyder Cut being released, and all of it is a golden opportunity for Warner Brothers to harness the enthusiasm of the fan base that pushed for the Snyder Cut for so long. Unfortunately, all that seems to be falling on deaf ears at the studio level. Warner Brothers is squandering the Snyderverse hype. Warner Brothers' aforementioned cul-de-sac comment first emerged early in 2021 and signaled a lack of interest by the studio in continuing where the Snyder Cut leaves off. Snyder himself had he didn't expect his involvement in the franchise to continue beyond the Snyder Cut, but the response since its release offers plenty for Warner Brothers to reconsider their stance. An interview with Warner Brothers CEO Ann Sarnoff in the wake of the movie's release would only further shoot down the perception of the studio moving ahead with the subsequent Snyderverse projects. Of course, that's done nothing to quell the ongoing push for it, and that shows that Warner Brothers is ignoring a property they could be reaping big rewards from. To be sure, greenlighting Snyder's Justice League sequels or other adjacent Snyderverse projects like Affleck's Batman is a much bigger ask than simply finishing up and releasing the Snyder Cut. With that being said, there's also an ongoing hype wave generated by the movie itself that Warner Brothers could build upon. Furthermore, Snyder's arc having a definitive ending in the place would only call upon a commitment of a few years, with there still being room for spin-offs like Affleck's Batman movie or the Ryan Choi-centered Atom movie Snyder has also spoken of. With DC movies and TV shows now all canonized as multiverse after the Arrowverse's Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, which included an appearance by Ezra Miller's Flash, restoring the Snyderverse also wouldn't step on the toes of Matt Reeves' The Batman or other in-development DC movies either. In essence, the demand for the Snyderverse to continue is clear, and Warner Brothers has a window that would allow them to do so without undercutting their other DC movies. As things currently stand, the Snyder Cut has planted the seeds for the rest of Zack Snyder's planned story to be finished, with growing numbers of viewers calling for it to happen, and Warner Brothers remaining committed to their classification of the movie as a cul-de-sac. As the studio continues to try to get audiences on board with their alternative plans for the DCEU, the details of which they have so far not clearly articulated, the what could have been question of the Snyderverse is bound to continue to hover over the franchise. Continuing to ignore the calls for the Snyderverse's restoration is also likely to erode the goodwill the DCU has regained. The reception to Zack Snyder's Justice League has given Warner Bros. A groundswell of excitement to capitalize on, and the studio is, unfortunately, letting it slip right through their fingers. Though if the history of the Snyder Cut itself is any indication, that's certainly not likely to stop fans from calling for it to happen. As this is such a dead-on article. This is exactly how we think. And the thing about it is, it's reasoning and it's sense, and it makes sense, and it makes money. And like, it's everything. Like, you remember, the Snyder Cut, like I said before, is just killing it all over the world. And we still haven't gotten the digital copies down. We haven't gotten the DVDs and Blu-rays out. And that's going to be another crazy scenario. This is what I got to say, and I'm finished. And I'm going to stream after this video. The Snyder Cut is testimony to the fact that there is a tremendous audience out there for the Snyderverse. And with all those numbers coming, and they're all coming in right now, it has been a success on every single front. Whether it's HBO Max's front, whether it's internationally, it's been an absolute complete success. There is no doubt that this thing should be greenlit. A sequel should be greenlit. It should have been greenlit since yesterday. And so I'm calling on AT&T. AT&T, if you're watching this video, I'm going to tag you in it. I'm calling on AT&T to make that move, because all the data is in your favor. And however you got to do it, make sure, 1, the Snyder Cut goes into theaters. 2, that the restoration of the Snyderverse begins now. And we're talking about the Air Cut next year. And then we're talking about the Batman movie, which was supposed to come after the Snyder Cut. And then, of course, so you need a green light, Zack Snyder's Justice League 2. Do it. Do it, AT&T. Do it. Do it now. I am out of here. Catch you guys later.